Hello and welcome to the Beyond Podcast. We are talking about Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. I am the last Grey Jedi, Mediocrity 4.
It's me, High Powered, and I think this is my first time being, one of these podcasts. And like The Last Jedi, this is my last beer, so that means I have to go buy some more tomorrow. So there we go.
And I am neither the last Grey Jedi, nor am I the last Jedi. I am Robert.
Last Sith?
Maybe.
Dude couldn't make it. I'm gonna try having a discussion video just like me and him, because this movie, man, there's a lot of it's a very divisive movie, and I could kind of see why, but I also don't get why it's getting as much hate as it's getting. So before we get started, High Powered, since you weren't here last week, what were your thoughts on The Force Awakens specifically?
So The Force Awakens, I saw it about 3 times with So I saw it with my roommate the first time. I saw it with my family, and then I think my family again too, also like twice. And I enjoyed The Force Awakens, even though I personally I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, it's retreading the first episode of the original trilogy. It's so the story beats are there and stuff. I feel that this movie is on the same level. I feel that The Force Awakens has its problems, along with Rogue One has its problems, but I feel that that this movie, The Force Awakens, did not offend me in any way, shape, or form. I didn't feel like my time was wasted as the Mormon dinner bells being rang over where Robert's at. So, the best way, if I had to put it into words if you took out the word Star Wars and The Force Awakens and you inserted generic sci-fi title, this movie, if it wasn't related to a Star Wars movie, would be pretty good though, because since it has Star Wars in the name of it, people have very high. I want to say high expectations.
The same of Phantom Menace, in that regard. If Phantom Menace wasn't a Star Wars movie, I think it would have went down as one of the better sci-fi movies of the 90s.
And I say this is if this was a Star Wars movie that was canon, but I feel that this does a better job of if this wasn't in the canon trilogy, or wasn't it's canon but not a part of the canon trilogy, I feel that this would have done a better job than Rogue One did, in all honesty.
I think it did do a better job than Rogue One, but
I liked Rogue One because we had Space Mujahideen, and then we also had a door gunner too. Also,
no one's gonna know who that is.
What, the Mujahideen? Those are just guys that we funded during to fight the Russians, and then those eventually became Al Qaeda. So we actually have Space ISIS, and its varying sub branches in that too also, where they're doing rooftop ambushes on an armed convoy of stormtroopers. So I don't know if that was on purpose, or they're like, oh well, that's the obvious way to do resistance thing. So
sorry.
I also like the shuttle door gunner too. Also was pretty cool. That brings me back to a Full Metal Jacket. Yeah. If they run, they're Imperials. If they stand still, they're disciplined Imperials.
Yeah, because I think a lot, this is kind of, Last Jedi is kind of the opposite extreme of The Force Awakens, where The Force Awakens was very much a love letter. It was very much recreating that same kind of plot structure as A New Hope, and kind of reverse engineering, okay, Star Wars has worked. There's been Star Wars movies that have worked. There's been Star Wars movies that haven't worked. Let's figure out why Star Wars works, and that's really what J.J. Abrams was doing in The Force Awakens, and that's kind of what his only actual directing talent is taking movies from the 70s and 80s and figuring out like what worked about them.
And just as a friendly reminder, when didn't J.J. Abrams get his start like advertising like directing music videos or something? Or was that another
most directors.
A lot of directors do.
Most directors.
I'll be honest.
Michael Bay started with music videos. Same with David Fincher. Well, actually, David Fincher was a technician.
Don't know that Michael Bay is the best example.
There's probably a lot of money.
But David Fincher, okay.
the amount of work put in versus the amount of money got out of a music video is probably pretty good. In all honesty,
and music videos are typically easy to make, and you can like you can make a lot of connections in that movie. That's why like half the cast of Fight Club were people who had been in music videos or musicians. Like what's his name? Jared Leto, Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Anyway, I kind of like bringing up David Fincher when it comes to Star Wars, because David Fincher almost directed a Star Wars movie like a couple times, but kept passing it up because he felt like it lost touch of what it was after Empire.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he worked on Return of the Jedi as a technician back in the day. That's where that was the first movie he ever worked on. But anyway, Rian Johnson, I'm probably gonna go back and forth on the pronunciation.
I think it's Rian Johnson.
Throughout the podcast. It's not spelled like Ryan, though. But it's not spelled like Rain. It's definitely not Rain Johnson. I've heard someone say that before.
I think I prefaced this too also. I only saw this movie once, and whenever I did see it, I was completely sober the entire time, so my enjoyment of a lot of things can be tempered dramatically with my blood alcohol levels. Don't drink, kids. It's bad for you, so I can save you from it.
Yeah. You're like the nostalgia critic of alcohol. You drink it so we don't have to. But Rian Johnson, the only movie I've seen of his was Looper, which was really, really good, really solid time travel, almost like Terminator-esque movie, with like a lot of time travel stuff in it, and it was like other than that, it was like a gangster movie. So he's a lot more ambitious director, and it really shows with how ambitious this movie is, and where I think it lands where Rogue One failed is that it kind of succeeds.
Do you want to get Dude here?
Oh yeah, if Dude's on, go ahead and pop him in. Okay, so we couldn't get Dude on, but where were we? We were talking about Rian Johnson, which I don't know much else about him. I do know that he kind of took the criticism to The Force Awakens at heart. And tried doing something different, and there's a bit of Empire Strikes Back in this movie, a bit of Return of the Jedi. But the one I kept on getting reminded of was actually, Phantom Menace.
It did feel a lot like Phantom Menace. Once you say it now, I'm like, yeah, you're right.
In that there are a lot of creative things about this movie, but there's something a little off about it, and I think it's a structural problem. There's a side quest in this that goes on for way too long and doesn't really amount to anything. I'm trying to be spoiler free in this first section. We'll get more in depth on that. We'll sound the alarm.
Plots going in a AAA movie happening at the same time.
Yeah. Which actually, Phantom Menace didn't do that a whole lot. A lot of the other Star Wars movies did. Pretty much the first movie in each trilogy has been the least side quest heavy, and then they get like progressively more side quest heavy as they go. And I think this movie looked amazing. The acting was fine for the most part. There's a few weak performances in the movie. We'll get into the who's and whys on that when after we cross the spoiler threshold. So I think this was a good. I don't think it deserves the hate it's getting. It was a really solid movie, and the fact that it's been almost a week since I've seen this, and I don't think an hour has went by in that week where I haven't thought about this movie. That's the first time I can think of that happening since at least since Captain America: Civil War. If not that, then I'd have to go all the way back to like Inception for a movie that has stuck with me just constantly in my head for this long. Usually after like a day or two, it's like, oh yeah, I did see that movie, didn't I? I give this movie a really solid 7 out of 10. Probably the most solid 7 out of 10 of the year. And it's because of just those few technical, like, story structure problems that really bring down the package. So, what are your guys' spoiler-free thoughts?
Yeah.
I enjoyed the movie. This movie was, I don't want to say it's somewhere between fine and good for me, and the line between fine and good is pretty thin. I did enjoy. There were parts that I enjoyed. I wasn't really bored with anything. There's certain aspects of this movie that I really liked with certain characters. I mean, it's kind of obvious. Well, I was going to say I kind of like grumpy old man Luke Skywalker, which I don't feel is a spoiler.
No. If it's in the trailer, it's not a spoiler.
Yeah. So, there was definitely a lot of. I'm not a crazy Star Wars fan. I enjoy the movies, so like I'm kind of coming from that like Mr. fucking I'm just the guy who's just sitting on the bench and it's like, I enjoyed it. It's like I'm fine. I mean, the only thing that like, it was nothing. Yeah, nothing. My parents were like, it was okay. My mom was like, oh, I don't like Kylo Ren. He's a terrible villain, and I'm like. Kind of his point is he's kind of a shitty villain, and I kind of like the fact that Kylo Ren's a shitty villain,
and that plays into this movie in a big way.
Yeah. Where does Kylo Ren even fall on the role playing game chart? Like, is he like chaotic neutral or chaotic evil?
I'm gonna go with chaotic neutral for now.
I'd almost go with neutral evil.
Neutral evil, maybe?
Neutral evil, yeah.
Because he doesn't seem to have a whole lot of ambitions outside of power.
Yeah, it seems like he's mainly just in it for himself. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think he's a slightly better version of what Anakin Skywalker was in Episode 2 when he was going on his side quest.
It gets all over the place and everywhere. It's so rough and gritty. He's Leia's looking at Skywalker as he just autistically spurgs. Yeah, whatever words. just sitting there autistically speaking. Okay.
He's like, what is he even talking about? Like, I mean, oh god.
When did I even bring? Well, she did.
Why do I put up with this farm boy again?
Yeah.
Oh wait, that's right. The Force does some really weird stuff in the bedroom.
Good to have you on here, High Powered.
It's a shame that I'm only going to be one beer into this.
But
Robert,
yeah, I thought this was pretty good. Like, it was a decent film, and I think in certain places they tried a little too hard to be subversive. I feel like they tried a little too hard to trick us in certain places. But overall, like, I feel like it went on a little too long. But
yeah,
and so I feel like it got a little tedious in places. But overall, I enjoyed it. It managed to, something I talked about last week about Rogue One, was that it managed to give me that feeling. Like, it had a good feeling of suspense. This had a similar, like, moment of suspense that I think came too early in the film. But it did a good job of, it had those moments that had me on the edge of my seat, and those are like the most memorable moments in Star Wars for me. So yeah. So I thought it was pretty good.
So we're gonna cross the threshold. We're gonna talk about this movie almost like scene by scene. And give our thoughts on various aspects. And so, if you haven't seen the movie yet, stop watching, because we are going to talk about everything, including the fact. Here we go. This is your last chance.
Oh wait, here, hold a second. We gotta do it officially. Okay, the spoilers begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoiler zone.
People always talk about George Lucas killed my childhood with the prequels. This movie literally killed my childhood. Luke Skywalker is done.
Okay, let's preface this real quick here. So Luke Skywalker is like, man. So they actually, I was catching. So I was spoiled a little bit on this, mainly because on one of the Discords I was like, "Hey, did you guys check out the new Matrix movie?" And then the guy posts the web of freaking Luke Skywalker doing the fucking dodge of the lightsaber. And so I'm just sitting there, and then like that sort of spoiler, like, and like it's obviously like where he gets like
really
he
close
would have
to the
been
end of
cut.
the movie.
Yeah, so he gets cut in half by Kylo Ren, but he's perfectly fine. And then Kylo's just sitting there poking at him with a stick with his lightsaber.
Yeah.
And I see this,
and it goes right through him. Yeah.
And I'm like, and this is like, for me, this is the type of spoiler that makes me want to see the movie more because I need context.
Yeah, and that's something like straight out of some of the books. Like I'm pretty sure he did that against Jason Solo, in one of the books.
Yeah.
And so
okay.
So here's the thing, though. Luke Skywalker dies because he's like, okay, I used up all my mana. I'm just gonna go take a nap real quick. Oh fuck! I slept too hard and now I died.
I don't know if I'm okay with this. Like, I said last week that I don't want this to happen. That I am going to cry, and I didn't cry. I swear. But
I believe you.
I was fighting it.
Yeah.
I had to try. This movie challenged me, and we're gonna get a little more in depth with Luke Skywalker later. We just want to, like, that's the big spoiler for this. That's that's probably the thing that a lot of people are going to be taking away from this movie is this is the movie where Luke Skywalker becomes one with the Force.
Skywalker died. Yeah.
He becomes one with the Force. He'll be back as a Force ghost. I mean, there's literally
because he still needs to give Rey that third lesson.
Yeah, there's literally no reason. I mean, they established Force ghosts really early on in Star Wars. There's no reason why they wouldn't like bankroll Mark Hamill for one more movie.
Especially in this movie.
Turns out Han Solo's also a Force ghost.
Dude,
I think it would be cool.
I Force ghosted first, Luke. I beat you. That's
or Luke's just gonna have to hold his hand through the Force ghosting and stuff like that, like apparently Qui-Gon had to do for Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Oh god, I want, like, I kind of want to see it like all the Force ghosts, like just get Liam Neeson, Mark Hamill, Ewan McGregor, Hayden Christensen, the Frank Oz puppet, and then just Harrison Ford randomly there too. Maybe some like other Jedi, like get Samuel L. Jackson in there. Just have like a ghost Jedi.
Samuel L. Jackson's a Force ghost. That would be fucking amazing. And he's like trying to bat away a bunch of Force snakes. He's like, I'm sick and tired of these motherfucking snakes in my motherfucking Force dimension.
Yeah.
Anyway, this battle picks up right where the Force Awakens left off.
Yeah.
The New Republic got wasted towards the end of Episode 7, and we kind of see the consequences of that because Snoke was able to just come in, take complete power in the matter of hours, days, maybe. It seemed really fast, especially since it is like, oh no, this is like right after The Force Awakens. We get a really cool space battle with Poe, where he's fighting a dreadnought.
And
so here's what I like about this part. So some people are like, okay, so this is we're gonna address the issue with the humor of this movie. So this is what I feel is, so ever since, and this is the biggest example of like where this started was with all the success of the Marvel was with all the success of the Marvel Universe movies, where like most of the movies have to have some sort of comedy and it's got to have some lighthearted moments into this. the studios see that this type of movie is doing well, and thus they then continued doing that sort of thing with other movies. So that's kind of where the carryover comes from.
Yeah.
So basically, this movie opens up with a joke, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, with Poe and Hux. Calling General Hux.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like, no, I'll hold. And so here's the thing, though, like, Poe's stalling.
Yeah.
And so, and you're sitting there.
But also, it's a joke at the villain's expense, at Hux's expense.
It's a joke at the villain's expense, but I appreciate it because, so it feels like a shitty joke, but it feels kind of like whatever. It's like in those moments where, like, oh, like I knocked out one of the guards, and the guard's getting radioed in, and then like the robber's picking up the radio to radio in for the guard. And it's that sort of conversation.
Where have we seen a scene like that? Episode 4, maybe? Yeah. Hello? We had a minor reactor leak? Boring conversation anyway. There.
And so, so here's the thing, though, because for one, this sort of banter fits Poe's character. Like, if this was any other character doing it, or like a random stooge doing it, I would have been more. I wouldn't have been like. I don't think it was like. I grinned, but it wasn't like I was sitting there laughing about it, which there's a few people in the theater that were like chuckling about it. But it makes sense for what he's doing, because he's literally waiting for his turbochargers on his X-Wing to spool up so he can go, so that the Eurobeat music can just kick into action as he fucking bursts forward.
Yeah.
So, basically, what's his name again? I'm sorry.
Poe or Hux?
Yeah. No, Poe. Basically, Poe ends up soloing the anti-air array of the dreadnought.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I thought the space battle was really, really cool. To kind of address my thoughts on the humor, there weren't any cringeworthy jokes in this. That's the thing. Like the humor was okay. I don't think I laughed out loud at anything. I think there's like one or two parts that made me chuckle a bit. But other than that, the humor was just kind of there. I don't think they were trying to be like a comedy, and they certainly weren't. Like, a lot of people have been comparing it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the humor comes with how extreme those personalities are.
Yes.
And other than Hux, there's not really an extreme personality in these movies. Like Hux and maybe Finn a little bit, but
Finn's just a hot-headed pilot.
No, Poe's the hot-headed pilot.
Oh yeah, Poe's the hot-headed pilot.
Finn is the worthless stormtrooper, which is kind of redundant. But
yeah.
And so
I think I don't know. I hear people complaining about like the humor in this movie, and it's like, you guys realize that George Lucas tried to be like. Well, yeah, like The Empire Strikes Back also had its really funny parts. And Return of the Jedi had its really funny parts. And every movie directed by George Lucas tried to have its funny parts. George Lucas just isn't good at being funny. So it's like, George Lucas, like, this isn't new. Humor is not. Star Wars is not, has never been like a serious affair that, can't have any jokes whatsoever. So
that's what I liked about The Force Awakens, and what I kind of liked about the humor in this movie is that it was on par with a lot of George Lucas's humor, for better or worse. Phantom Menace had a freaking farting camel gag.
Yeah,
guys,
exactly.
The juvenile humor, that's not on Disney. That's just part
and
of
again,
Star Wars.
And again, a character talking to. Yeah, and again, a character stalling another character over the intercom. Han did the exact same thing in Episode 4. It's Poe just did it better.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Well, okay,
better. He did it. He did it as well.
Okay, he did. Well, okay, he did it. Oscar Isaacs did not do it as good as Harrison Ford, but he actually succeeded in stalling them long enough to do what he needed to do.
Oscar Isaacs is one freaking charismatic dude, though. I'd follow him.
Yeah, but
Oscar
Isaacs is still really good. Yeah.
If he wanted to,
I don't know if he's
on that ship. I
don't know if he's Harrison Ford, but he is definitely Oscar Isaacs. So yeah, he did good. And it's good that we got more of Poe and more of Poe in this because he was Yeah, we didn't get nearly enough of him in The Force Awakens.
So he's stalling for these bombers and stuff to get there, which I don't know what happened to the B-Wings.
They were really slow.
Well, most bombers are slow. With this
I know that.
In Return of the Jedi were supposed to be like their bombers, and I don't know. It's just there's some things about not the space battle in particular. Like it did build tension. Like, oh, we're running out of bombers. Like we just got to get one of them there. How
did that girl not suffocate? By the way,
there's
so like she got atmospheric shield. Maybe,
but like there were guys up there because, like they, I would have guessed that, but then there were other guys that were in charge of dropping the
sound and fire in space.
Yeah,
it's Star Wars.
Well, yeah. Also, it's like there were guys that were because like the original guys who were supposed to be pressing the buttons, they all had face masks, so I was assuming that like they needed those, although they weren't.
I feel like this was kind of an homage to a whole. You remember there was a time where we got a whole bunch of like really like C-list and B-list movies of like World War II bomber pilots and like the B-17s as they're like, you know,
it was very much.
No, I got that.
And it was sitting there and like especially with like how like you know like these ships were still like there were ships that were flying around where like the dorsal gunners and like all the gunners were shot out, like. There was holes in the ship and stuff. Like it was kind of an homage to all of that, and that was kind of like I don't want to say it was a genre, but it was definitely like there was a period in time where like there were movies were a lot like that, and I kind of appreciate.
They were one of the inspirations
Star Wars
for Star
Episode
4. To begin, they were one of Star Wars inspirations to begin
World
with.
War
That's why
II
I really
dogfights.
appreciated this.
Yeah, and so I appreciated that. But then
I don't know. That was just something I wondered about. Like, how is she not suffocated? But anyway,
I'm just thankful that I will never have to fight in a hard vacuum. So I just like to chalk it up like this. So, because the human body can withstand exposure to a hard vacuum for about, assuming you don't have a whole lot of oxygen in your lungs, for about 10 to 15 seconds. For my understanding. Now, if you held your breath, though, your lungs would rupture and you'd probably pass out from the pain. But they basically Poe fucking solos all the anti-air. Then the bombers come in, and then the Imperials scramble the fighters, which I don't understand why they didn't preemptively scramble the fighters to begin with. But then again, you know, they got to be able to do this. That's where we were introduced to another character's sister who dies in the fire because they're like, "Oh, remember this necklace? You got to pay attention to this necklace because the camera focuses onto the necklace for just a little bit." And so the ship's blown up, and then also the robot saves the day too, also by playing Twister with the circuit board inside the X-wing,
and then just shoving his head into it. That was interesting.
I feel that joke played. It was there just a little bit too long. This then basically rolls into the part where they recall the fighters, and then Leia's
lose a lot of people.
Yeah, and Leia's like, "Why did you do that?" It's like, "But we killed a dreadnought." It's like, "But we lost a lot of people." As she's sitting there looking at the screen of all like the of all the casualties being racked up.
Every one of their bombers and a lot of fighters,
And then,
so I believe, Hypire, it was you who actually predicted this, when the trailer came out, and it showed Kylo Ren, like, hesitating. I think you were the first one to tell
and
me.
then someone just launches a missile instead. Right. That's exactly what happened.
I called that one too, yeah.
Which led to one of the silliest moments in this movie, Super Leia!
I heard it as Mary Poppins Leia, which I admit I have mixed feelings on that one.
Better. It could have been done better.
I will say this: the cinematography of that shot was very pretty, but it also feels sad that like all of the old guard, like Admiral Akbar and all of them, are now dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically off screen. But like, I think it would have been better, like, if they would have blown up the bridge and Leia like was about to get sucked out, and then she like pulled herself there before she actually got sucked out into the vacuum of space and saved herself that way.
I kind of would have preferred
just like blew up, but it was never ruptured, so she just like did something to
she
shield
held
herself.
on long enough for all of like the blast doors to close, pretty much.
Yeah, if something like that, I think this scene would have went over a lot better with audiences, because as it stands, she was out there for like a couple minutes, it seems like, and then she just like opens her eyes, lifts her hand, and is like, da 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 da.
Yeah, and it's like I'm willing to. Yeah, and it's kind of like I'm willing to kind of suspend my disbelief that the Force would allow her to do that, but yeah, I feel like this movie was kind of them taking a lot more liberties with the Force and what it can do, which is fine because it's always been very loosely defined and stuff like that.
Yeah,
they even address that, and I like that. But
it makes sense that if you can pull objects to you, you can pull yourself towards objects. Especially
that made sense to me. But yeah, I don't know.
So here's
the editing could have been better for this scene. Like, I think it was an editing problem more than anything.
So here's the real question, though: was this scene was this like the committee was behind this scene? Was this the writer's idea, or was this the director's idea? Is the real question.
Writer and director is the same person. Rian Johnson did both.
Okay, so was this the committee's idea for this to be in there? Because they gave him a lot of freedom, but I feel like the committee has
kind of came up with it himself, and he did it to give Leia a big Force moment, which I know they didn't know this while they were filming the movie, but I'm glad that we got a Force, a really powerful Force moment with Leia before Carrie Fisher died.
Yeah,
because she's not coming back for episode 9, as far as I know.
Yeah.
So for in the extended universe that may or may not be canon, did Leia use any Force powers before all that was thrown into basically onto your equivalent?
Yes, she never became a Jedi, but Luke did teach her the basics, and she did do Jedi stuff. Kind of like Maz did in The Force Awakens when they deleted that scene. There's a deleted scene in The Force Awakens where Maz Kanata saves, I think, Finn from a bunch of falling rubble using the Force. Even though she's not a Jedi, she straight up says I'm not a Jedi, but you don't have to be a Jedi to use the Force. And Leia did a lot of stuff like that in the expanded universe.
Yeah.
Oh, I was about to make my joke that most of the Star Wars novels are now on equivalent with fan fiction titles such as Five Nights at Freddy 4 Edition and Pregnant Sonic Mpreg Edition. So
they were never that bad. They were pretty bad, but they were never that bad.
So,
but yeah, and so I thought, I don't know. I guess a part of me kind of wonder, like I said earlier, I feel like a lot of this movie was them trying very hard to be, to trick us and be all subversive and stuff like that. A part of me wondered if
I think this scene worked, and I think it worked because of Carrie Fisher's death, which obviously they filmed and did most of the scene before she passed away, because she just passed away a year ago today, or pretty close, about a year ago.
Yeah. And I did. Yeah. But yeah, and I did call it that. Kylo Ren wouldn't take the shot, but somebody else would take the shot. Although I was wrong about her dying. So yeah, but I did think it was cool to see Leia use actually use the Force. I do feel like it felt a little cheesy, but I remember watching it and I was kind of oh wow, they just killed Leia. I'm actually a little bummed. I actually feel like that was a little anticlimactic, a little abrupt and a little anticlimactic. And then I saw that, I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. Yeah.
That's.
But then I thought, it was really cool. That I don't know. I thought it was pretty cool, and it was one of those moments that surprised me, had me going, what? And then in hindsight, it's okay, that was kind of silly, but still, I don't know.
I think that was the one time that actually made me laugh, but it was an unintentional laugh. I was like, oh my god, this is so silly. I'm all for it. I like it when Star Wars gets a little silly. Do you not realize that Star Wars started off as basically Flash Gordon fan fiction?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Yeah, Star Wars was never.
Yeah, I feel like
serious.
that. Yeah, I feel like that's something the really, really hardcore Star Wars fans sometimes don't want to admit is that, like, you know, it got silly. It's been
like,
silly before.
Like it's.
And it will continue to be silly.
I think one of the tonal problems with this movie is that Rian Johnson realizes that. He knows that Star Wars is supposed to be a little silly, but he's not a silly director. Like he's not as good with the comedy stuff as he is with the serious stuff because he's only done serious movies up to this point.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a bit of the tonal problem with this movie that I think a lot of people are going to be, or not a lot of people, because most average audiences don't care about tonal problems. They don't care about tone shifts. Like that's so low on like the critical spectrum. And a lot of movies have tone shifts, but I think it went like a little back and forth. Like they have this really serious moment where people are dying, and then Super Leia. And then you got stuff like the Porgs just. We'll talk about that.
Nobody wanted
them later. So we transition to Luke and Rey. On that island, isn't it called like Antonok? Antok, something like that. You know what? I'm gonna look up the planes. I don't know why. I think in the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, they say the names of the planets so many times that you remember it, but with these newer movies, they only say the planet, like, other than Jakku and Scarif, they only say the planet name, like, maybe once, if at all. And so the planet, because of that, the planets just don't end up being as memorable. Like, the only planet name I remember is Canto Bight, and it's because it's the one planet everyone brings up as like a big down point. Planet. Yeah, the casino planet.
Yeah.
You see, I didn't that didn't bother me because it was like a good change of scenery too. Also, because
it's got its problems, but we'll get to that later. Yeah. So Luke is in hiding, and he keeps asking Rey, "Why are you here?" I don't think she ever gives him a straight answer. Like I can't remember who I was talking about. This I think it was OC Maniac. He was like, "Oh, it just gets a little redundant because he keeps telling him why she's here." Like, does she though? She never actually gives him a straight answer. Like, why is she specifically here? Why not?
Well, she kind of says, Chewie?
Because anyone else with the Resistance, and it's like, yeah, it's because you're Force power, and you need someone to teach you your place in the universe.
Yeah,
and I really love what they do with Rey and Kylo Ren throughout this movie. I'm a little
I thought that was really well.
I'm a little lukewarm on Luke though.
Yeah.
That one's for you, Sak, if you ever watch this.
He says he does, but I don't know. So a lot of people kind of complain about Luke just tossing the lightsaber over his shoulder and stuff like that. I think some people feel I
thought that was funny.
Yeah, some people that I've heard have kind of said, it feels like that's basically what they were doing with like the plot of The Force Awakens. But it's like I talked about with my brother and stuff like that. We talked about how like that, in a way, was like the perfect signifier for what like the tone of this entire movie is going to be about. What the entire tone of Rey, Luke, and Kylo Ren's story was going to be, the idea of leaving the past behind and stuff like that, and maybe not quite so callously, but like that does kind of set the tone shift for, or kind of set the stage for where Luke is at. So, and what he's going to be trying to teach Rey. So, I don't know. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely like a don't meet your hero theme with Luke, and I'm kind of fundamentally against at least one thing they do with Luke in this movie. And it's something that I've heard a lot of people complaining about, including Mark Hamill. Like, Mark Hamill's went on record a couple times being like, I fundamentally disagree with this decision that Rian Johnson made. I don't see Luke ever being the guy who tries to just outright kill someone who's been tempted by the dark side. I see him doing exactly like what he said he did, which was like think, oh, I'm Luke Skywalker. I converted Darth Vader. I can convert anyone, and then it blown up in his face. Like that's, I think that would be so much more believable for, at least the Luke Skywalker that we all grew up with, the Luke Skywalker from, the original trilogy. This Luke Skywalker was very different. He was kind of this cool mixture of Yoda and Obi-Wan, and I really dug that about him. Like just this trill, unpleasant hermit who drinks this green milk from these
camel cow sea things. Yeah, camel cow manatees or something like that. Who knows what they were? Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk. I want to talk about because in the scene we kind of get the thing that Luke is afraid of on this island. The center of dark side energy, the cave to this planet's Dagobah, turns out to just be a giant mirror. They don't make these things subtle. Like Luke, he realizes that like the hubris of the Jedi is what causes all these problems. Like he straight up said it. Like I think we were joking about this. We were talking about
yes, we were at the height of our power.
When we talked about Revenge of the Sith, I think we brought this up. Like, yeah, the Jedi were at the height of their power, and they let just this super powerful Sith Lord achieve the highest office in the Republic, and then change it into an empire right under their nose. And they were just powerless to stop it because because they were so proud of like their own abilities. Like, surely if a Sith were to rise, we'd be able to sense it. It's not until like episode 2 that Mace Windu's like, maybe we can't. Maybe we need to like tell the Republic that we're useless. And you're just like, no, it'll be fine.
No, we can't sense the darkness.
Fine, it will be. Which kind of brings me like this happens later on in the movie. But I really love... My favorite scene in this movie is the Yoda scene.
Oh gosh, I love... Okay, here's the thing. I will say this right now. A lot of punk-ass kids in this generation is like, no, it has to be LCG. But whenever I saw all those I saw Puppet Yoda again, and I'm like, hell yeah, Puppet Yoda's back. And all those puppet little bird creature things, and I'm like, man, this is good. I'm like, this is what I need in my life right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just there, and I'm like, this is good.
When Yoda first showed up, it looked a little off to me, and it took me a while. It took me a bit of thinking to figure out why it looked off. They had the puppet there, which you would think is a good thing, but it's obvious it looked different than the puppets that they've used before. Like, they made a new puppet just for this scene.
Yeah.
So it looked a bit off-model. But on top of that, it has a bit more color than Force Ghosts have had before, and they just kind of threw this blue haze effect over it. And so the composition of the actual shot didn't look as good, but man, do they make up for it with the writing. God, one of my favorite lines in this movie is what Yoda says to Luke, which is like,
not page turners, are they?
Like Skywalker, always looking towards the sunrise, never what's right in front of your stupid face.
Yeah.
And like this.
Still looking out to the horizon, never focused on where you are.
I like how there is a meme.
This is not the Luke from Return of the Jedi. This is the Luke from A New Hope. This is the Luke who doesn't want any part of the conflict. He just wants to be free. He just wants
to sit at my moisture farm.
Yeah.
Not even live at the moisture farm, but he wanted to escape Tatooine, but he still wanted to just live free out in space. And he kind of got his wish, but he's realizing that he can't be thinking about the big picture. He can't be thinking about himself and his place in the universe. There's stuff going on that he needs to work on and work through.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he sees something in Rey that no one else does, and not even Rey sees it in herself until she confronts Kylo Ren and Snoke. And that's that Rey is the clean slate. Unlike Luke, she came from nothing, and I love that twist. I love the twist that her parents were just garbage junkers who sold her off for freaking drinking money. Like, I love that about her because she's so ingrained with kind of legacy, like we talked about with The Force Awakens. Like these new movies are getting like really meta with their place within the Star Wars canon and the Star Wars legacy. And Rey is trying to like live up to that by kind of lying to herself. She's lying to herself like, no, I have like these really important parents. I'm really powerful.
Who left me for a reason, for a good reason. Yeah. You know, left me to protect me. Maybe and it's like, nope.
And you got the opposite. And you got the opposite of that with Kylo Ren, who does come from the illustrious Skywalker legacy.
Yeah.
But is so throughout the movie, he carves out his own path. One of the first scenes we see of him, it's in the trailers, him smashing the Darth Revan mask.
Smashing the helmet, yeah.
All right,
after he's told, take it off.
I will say
after he's told by Snoke that he will never be Darth Vader. So he doesn't. So he stops trying to be Darth Vader, and he's better for it.
So here's the one thing that I liked about this volume. I say volume. Fuck, Ruby's creeping back.
Episode.
So the one thing I liked about this episode is that we only had one moment of Kylo Ren autistically screeching on screen, instead of like several moments of him autistically screeching on screen. So
yeah, he really comes into his own in this movie. He really cements himself as someone who is like a good character, and
yeah,
I know Dude was. I
like the fact that he's a shitty villain. I'm perfectly fine with it. But he's a shitty villain that has like obviously like easy buttons to push. So,
and he's slowly getting rid of those buttons, which is what I like. And I know Dude was talking about like when on the Discord, Dude was talking about this. But Adam Driver knocks it out of the park in this episode. So does Daisy Ridley. They both knock it out of the park with their performances. Yeah, they are really so good, and they portray a lot of depth and nuances that weren't there in The Force Awakens, and weren't really allowed to be there in The Force Awakens because those characters were so preoccupied with chasing these legacies. And like Rey projecting her daddy issues onto every freaking male figure she comes across in the movie, and continuing to do that here until Luke Skywalker disappoints her, which is exactly what Kylo Ren said about Han Solo.
Yeah, you would be disappointed.
You'll be disappointed. Like I like how organic that was because fun fact, we discussed this last week. J.J. Abrams put a lot of questions in The Force Awakens and did not put answers. Rian Johnson had to come up with a lot of answers himself. And as far as his answer with Rey, it worked.
Yeah. It did work because, and they did even say, like, even The Force Awakens kind of built to this because they were telling her, you know, the ones they're not coming. Yeah, she was told by Maz, they're not coming back. You know, the ones you're waiting for, they're not coming back. You're waiting for nothing. In this movie, that kind of comes full circle with her finally being told, your parents never cared about you. They probably, like, pretty sure they're dead. You know, they have they would have no interest in you if they knew you were alive. You know, it's like they're not coming back again. So it's like, and she finally has to accept that. And Kylo Ren even says, you've pretty much figured this out yourself already. You've just been in denial. Yeah. And yeah, I enjoyed the scenes between Rey and Kylo Ren. Even if they did have Like again, these scene, I don't know. The main one that I'm thinking about is the scene where he's shirtless and stuff like that. And
so someone made a meme of that where like they posted it on this Discord where like someone just blew up how big he was, so he looked like even like more ripped than what he was, and it was like someone it's like who said Star Wars: The Force Awakens was a bad movie? And it's so I'm just. Like, for me, whenever I see these things...
I wonder if that's why Tumblr's getting mad, because Rey is confirmed straight.
Yeah.
Aww.
And so, here's the thing. So this is, like, kind of, like, the long game. And
no, but...
Like, so for me, these sort of, like, moments between the two of them is, like, for me, this is, like, in my mind, it's, like, Kylo Ren and Rey are kind of, like, both sides of the same coin, as much as I hate throwing that word around. Like, for me, it's, like... Rey seems like the Star Killer was, like, if he still existed and was able to fight Luke, if, I was going to say, is Star Killer even canon anymore? No, he's probably not. Hurts my insides. But,
No, that's a good thing, because Star Killer kind of sucked as a character.
Yeah, so I did like the scenes because it's like, they're both kind of playing the game. It's like, no, I want to convert you. It's like, but no, I want to convert you. Yeah. And so, like, even in, like, the trailers, it's sitting there, like, the way that they cut the trailers, it makes it sound like Rey was going to joke Kylo Ren.
I'm glad that neither one of them changed in this movie, though, like, there comes that moment where, like, oh, Kylo Ren saved her, whatever. No, he's still trying to change her to the dark side, like, oh, no, I'm the Supreme Leader now.
Yeah. He's doing what Sith do.
It's like if
no cutie waifu to rule the no cutie empress to rule the galaxy with.
Yeah, it's like
he's just killing Snoke because that's what the Sith do.
It's like if Darth Vader threw Emperor Palpatine off the balcony or whatever in the Death Star in Return of the Jedi and was like, I'm the Emperor now, and started shocking Luke.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, now you're gonna join me. Screw the old man.
Unlimited power.
Like that's what it was like. Like that was such a good.
I would love to hear that from James Earl Jones. But yeah,
that was such a good little twist on the Star Wars formula. What they did with that. It didn't quite land.
Yeah. God damn it!
And I think that's a good time.
Snoke was such a.
We're jumping ahead a bit.
Well, I was just gonna, if I can just finish what I was gonna say earlier. Sorry, but with the way that they portray. Kylo Ren here. They have those few goofier moments with him, but again, I like that because it again goes back to what I was saying about what I liked about Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens, that they're nailing home the idea that he's not Darth Vader, and like they're nailing home that human aspect of him. So he's someone who, gets a little uncomfortable when someone sees him shirtless and stuff like that. So he's got that bit of a.
I don't think he was
emphasizing more of that human side of him. Maybe a little. He has that line where he's all, "Yeah, I'm not thrilled by this right now either." And knowing that like Snoke was setting that whole thing up, you have to wonder if he was all like, "Hey, Kylo Ren, you're decent. Half? Why? Nothing. Seems like a good time." Like he's ship baiting them or something like that.
Turns out Snoke's true identity was a shipper. He was just a shipper.
You see,
he was trying to set them all like, let's see if I can get these two together.
He wanted his OTP to be canon.
With Snoke being a big thing burger, it makes me want to read the book that like was about him and like his rise to power.
There isn't any.
Oh, really? There isn't?
Yeah, there's not.
But yeah, going on to that, with Snoke,
So here's the thing, and Movie Bob brought this up, which, take Movie Bob's opinion with a grain of salt. He puts way too much emphasis on like, oh, if it's progressive, I'm going to give it a positive review, even if it's a dumpster fire like the 2016 Ghostbusters movie. But he brought up a really good point about Snoke.
I was thinking Birdemic.
Go
ahead.
He was He brought up a good point about Snoke. The question, where does Snoke come from, was never a thing in The Force Awakens. That's something that the fans did. That's something that we projected onto the movie. Because nobody in the movie questions where Snoke comes from. They all know exactly who he
Yeah.
is. It's kind of like a. Not saying that this movie is on par with the other movie, but it's kind of like the briefcase in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that it exists, and the characters know what it is, and the characters want it.
Yeah. And a part of me, I don't know. I think a big part of me is kind of like, I know a cop out when I see one. Like, I really feel like they just killed, like a part of this was just killing off a character that Rian Johnson had no idea what to do with. But at the same time, I also feel like it was a well executed cop out kind of. And again, from a certain point of view, was also a cop out that was
something that
decently
J.J.
executed.
Abrams can still do something with. Like, he could easily do like a Sith ghost. That would be cool.
Yeah.
We could still find out about Snoke's past, but Snoke was kind of a MacGuffin. He was just there to be the guy who turned Kylo Ren into Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
He turned Ben Solo into Kylo Ren.
Yeah. I was ultimately like okay with them killing him off, and again also with Kylo Ren then stepping in and becoming the Supreme Leader. Like, I feel like maybe him putting out more of a fight would have been nice, but still, I thought it was a well executed. I thought it was a good idea. I thought it was well done. So yeah.
And unless we find out that Snoke planned it all along.
That was the body double the entire time.
Yeah.
Who knows? J.J. Abrams. If J.J. Abrams has a better idea for who Snoke is than just a MacGuffin, he's gonna do something with them. And we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I'm kind of glad. The one good thing about it is that much like all the Rey theories, it just like right to all the people who had Snoke theories.
Was it? So here's the thing, though. Speaking of a Rey theory that like got thrown in the bus, so if you bought and played the single player of Battlefront 2, the main character ends up hooking with. This is obviously spoilers.
There was no way that Disney was gonna let something like that be the big reveal for Rey.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting there and I see that and I'm like, dude, I actually kind of hope this is the case. But then at the same time, whenever that happened, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with like her literally coming from nothing too. Also, so I'm like, but
especially now that Disney is trying to like distance themselves away from EA and what they were doing. Like they're knocking on EA's door and like thinking about giving the video game rights to someone else over the whole Battlefront 2 fiasco.
Yeah. So what? The main character hooks up with Rey at the end?
No. The main character has the main character has a child with a leading male supporting character in the show. And
are you not allowed to say who?
Mainly because I forget the name. And so basically it ends.
Oh, when she's Rey's mother.
Yeah, but it ends with like Kylo. It's like Kylo Ren is like doing his force mind rape on the other main character to get information, and he's mainly just trying to protect his daughter because I guess like both the wife and the husband were like, no, we need to like leave her somewhere because she's not safe with us. I will say though, the female character in that series is pretty cute though. She's a delicious brown girl.
Gotcha.
You are too easy to please.
I'm a simple man with simple needs. It's hardwired into my Spanish and Portuguese heritage. I just see brown women and I'm like, I must mate and reproduce with them.
So I'm gonna
hardwired into my genetics.
I'm gonna switch gears because this scene with the whole Snoke scene plays parallel to something else that's going on Snoke's ship at the time, which is the climax to the Finn plot. So we're gonna talk about the Finn plot.
The Finn plot,
the undeniable weak spot of this movie.
Yeah.
I took a few restroom breaks during the Finn plot. Like I took the restroom break whenever he was like about to jump out the escape pod and he gets caught by the chunky Asian lady.
Rose, yeah.
And then and then I came back and I'm like, oh okay, they hook up and stuff.
Yeah, they only know each other for like a day, but must be love, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so this is another area where I feel like they were trying to trick us and stuff like that, because and somebody's already pointed this out in one of the reviews that like, why couldn't BB-8 have hacked them in? Like, why couldn't BB-8 have figured out the code? That's like they need someone to open a door. That's what the droids do in every movie and stuff like that. And so it's like they go after this master code breaker, and again they make you think that like it's someone important and stuff like that. You're thinking that maybe it's Lando or something like that. Maz makes you think that, you know, they make it seem like it's going to be someone from that like we recognize.
Calrissian.
I think it would be cool, but then it's just some nobody who then gets replaced by another nobody who kind of touches on the gray, I don't know, kind of the gray areas of the world and stuff like that. But
this is all him sitting there. It's like, oh look, he's sitting there like scrolling over all like the Imperial fighters. Like, oh look, it's an X-wing. This guy sold into the Republic too. Also, it's like, you know, it's two sides of the door. This is the war economy. It's like, you know, people make money. It's like I do appreciate this being showed off, because this is a real life gray area too. Also, it's like, man, it's like, oh, like we're selling. It's like, man, it's like the Saudis just bought a whole bunch of tanks from us recently. It's like, aren't the Saudis like on weird terms with us in terms of like our friendship status with them? It's like,
yeah. And that was something
I don't know. I always find it a little disingenuous when Disney tries like projecting themselves as the rebels. When come on, Disney's the evil empire. They just bought Fox, guys.
Yeah,
they're getting taken to court over antitrust laws because they're buying up too many movie studios.
Yeah, and they have that thing where they're all like, yeah, all of these people at this casino are arms dealers and stuff like that. It's like,
there's other ways to make money.
Yeah, it's like there are other ways. Yeah, you can make money. Well, yeah, but it's like you can make movies by, I don't know, making movies, or you can make money by making movies too. But it's like, and I don't know, and also I kind of wonder about that, because they say, you know, yeah, all of these people in this casino, without exception, are arms dealers, and it's like there are two major warring factions in this galaxy. They're newer. Well, yeah, I guess there technically were three when there was the New Republic, but it's like there's the Resistance and there's the New Order. Is there really that big a market is there really that big of a market to is there really that big of a demand to fill all of these suppliers into a casino? I don't know.
I mean, I'm sincerely the amount of
I'm sincerely asking. I don't know, but
I mean, just imagine the amount of manpower it takes to build like a star destroyer. Like, the amount of time and place, like that probably keeps people fed and working for like years. Like, I mean,
I see Canterbury just being Space Vegas.
Yeah, and this is like this is like my 40K mind going in, where it takes like several like decades for them to even build like one ship. And then they're building ships off of copies of copies of copies of copies that have gotten progressively worse and more pixelated with each copy. And then how it's like, but the 40K universe is in a weird place in technology where it's like there's no innovation and they're all looking towards the past because innovation is heresy, apparently. That's just 40K lore to begin with. And I'm probably even wrong.
You just summed up Rogue One in a nutshell.
But,
yeah.
So,
but
I did.
But yeah, it does feel but sorry, I was just gonna say it does feel really disingenuous for Disney of all people to be wealth shaming people. It's all like, you guys are just as rich. But anyway,
so I actually did like the Codebreaker character. he was played very well. I actually enjoyed him on the screen.
I like that. I like that Disney actually this dude was on drugs. Benicio del Toro's character was just a straight up like freaking tweaker.
Oh yeah.
And I am kind of impressed that Disney let that fly. Because usually they wouldn't let something like that fly. Not today. Maybe in like the 40s, but or the 80s. But yeah, I did not think they'd let something like that fly. This whole subplot just kind of felt a little unimportant. So here's the plot on the plus side. They do give a really good death clock, like a timeline. Like, we got 18 hours to do this, or everyone is dead.
This whole episode basically happens, like, spaceship-wise in the span of, like, less than 3 days.
Yeah. So I really like that. But here's the thing, and this is where Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith did it better. Because in those movies, there was also 2 plots going on. But both of those plots mattered. They mattered to the overall thematic content, they mattered to the overall, like, character content and the story content. Like, Luke falling in love with Padme, important. Luke falling, or Anakin. Luke being born, the sequence of events that led to Luke's birth is important. The sequence of events that led to Anakin's fall, important. Obi-Wan got the more interesting, like, episode-to-episode stuff with hunting down the assassin and then hunting down General Grievous. But that wasn't as important to the overall plot as it was to the individual plot of that movie. And that's what the prequels tried to do to marginal success, actually, was have the 2 plots balance each other out. We're like, this is a self-contained plot, but there's also this overarching story, and we're doing both. With this movie, it's like they tried doing the same thing, but they didn't tie any of the Canto Bight stuff or any of the Finn stuff. They never tied that with Rey and what she was doing.
Rey's thing was all about letting the past go, and this plot was all about not destroying what you hate, but protecting what you love. Which I actually like, but it didn't fit with the rest. But
going back to like the Bruno, like what we said, Palpatine purposely put Obi-Wan specifically on those side plots to get him away from Anakin so that he can do that. Yeah. Obi-Wan being away on those missions is what led to Anakin's fall. And you got some of the things with Empire Strikes Back, where like you got Luke training on Dagobah, and then you got like the Empire chasing Han Solo across the galaxy. But the reason why they're chasing Han Solo across the galaxy is because they want to catch him Luke and use him as bait for Luke.
Yep.
And like so that made those plots a lot tighter. Attack of the Clones, as boring as it is sometimes, had a lot tighter plot than The Last Jedi. And that is the biggest criticism you're going to hear about this movie, is the Canto Bight stuff. Like, even when all the like fan backlash dies down and people are like, oh no, The Last Jedi was a solid movie. That's the scene. That's the bit. That's the stuff that people are never going to be won over with. I don't think, like, that's just my prediction. Who knows? The movie hasn't even been out for a week.
I think you're right.
But yeah, I really feel like that's going to be a downside. That's always going to be held over this movie's head as a negative until the end of time.
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever.
And ultimately,
I don't think, like, unlike the pod racing, I don't think it's ever gonna like be like, oh no, it was cool for what it was. But I just don't think that. Yeah.
Yeah. And ultimately, the entire thing was basically just a tool to get Finn and Phasma in the same area again, so they could give Phasma a slightly more satisfying send-off, but not much.
I guess Captain Phasma forgot how to fight between the times of her filming Game of Thrones and then this movie.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, so they bring her back, like, just for these last 5 minutes. And to be fair, like, I understand how, with the way this movie was going, with the idea of, the fact that it mostly took place in space and stuff like that, like there was no real opportunity for them to bring Phasma in until this moment. Although I feel like maybe they could have come up with something. But it's like, yeah, they basically just bring her in for 5 minutes, and then she has that brief fight with Finn, which I thought was, like, I actually thought it was pretty coolly shot to watch, them fighting. Meanwhile,
as everything's blowing the fuck up. Oh,
yeah, stuff's blowing. Yeah, BB-8 is going nuts in the background.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next.
Okay, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Lightspeed jump later. When we're talking about the Poe plot and how that ties into all this, because I want to address that first.
Sorry.
Phasma again was never meant to be a big deal. I don't know why the marketing team kind of always stuck on her. J.J. Abrams never intended her to be anything but a gag character. Rian Johnson obviously has no intention of doing anything with her.
Gwendolyn Christie and female stormtrooper
is a big star on Game of Thrones. I know.
I mean, other than her voice, you couldn't really tell that she was female with that armor on. I mean,
it's armor. Yeah. That's a good
like they
thing.
thought they were like they thought they were being progressive and stuff like that, but.
It's like those black female Nazis in the new Call of Duty game.
What?
Oh, haven't heard about that? You can play as a black female Nazi in the new Call of Duty game.
Oh god, why am I thinking of that troll image of like the very large black lady? I always oh god damn it! No, I got to keep myself from doing the We Was King shit again. But it thinks that like a picture of like this like lady that did as a joke was just like this big black lady dressed up as Adolf Hitler. It's I always envisioned is Hitler as a proud African woman of color, and then she knows like it's a joke and stuff, and she's sitting there playing it off like this is fucking hilarious. It's like I could appreciate this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I do think that this obsession that people ended up with Phasma was. This one is on marketing, I feel like.
And here's the thing, though. She gets more screen time than Boba Fett does.
Yeah, that's also true.
In The Force Awakens and in this movie, she gets more screen time than Boba Fett did in the original trilogy. And that she's supposed to be like the Boba Fett stand-in, and she gets, I think, a more satisfying death than Boba Fett did.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
It's that nice little turn. It's because they expected more. The marketing made, and again, like I said, this one, like, because we've talked about, with some of these characters and stuff like that, the fans made a bigger deal out of it than they were supposed to. The marketing made a bigger deal out of Phasma than they were supposed to. So, like, blame them for this one.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. I was still kind of bummed out and stuff like that because I'm a big Game of Thrones fan and and I think Gwendolyn Christie is awesome. But like, it was still pretty good. It was a cool fight. It was cool to watch. The ATST blowing stuff up in the background. Although the thing with BB-8 hijacking it didn't like.
Ow.
I don't know. Even the movie acknowledges that makes no sense whatsoever with Finn and Rose's looks of. What? Like, so I don't know. That was weird, but
well, you see, this is kind of one of my. This is one of my issues with this movie. Was I'm sitting there and I'm watching the movie, and there's times where like the transport ships are getting blown to hell. And I'm sitting there thinking, and it's like, okay, well, it's like, how are they going to get saved? And then I'm sitting there as, Finn and Rose's heads are about to get lopped off. And like, okay, what's going to come in to save the day for this one?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there.
Phasma goes full Bond villain.
Yeah, Phasma goes full Bond villain. And I'm sitting there.
No, y'all could have just.
No, it's like you could have just pull out your blasters, went pow pow. There you go, done.
Yeah.
You see.
But instead, she decides that she wants to make it hurt, even though decap be a very painless way.
I mean, it's like you're in Game of Thrones. What you just bring one of those guys from the Flayed Man tribe and just have them go to town. That'll be a good way to do it.
Get the Boltons on it.
Yeah, get the Boltons on it. Man, I miss the Boltons now since they're all dead. I always appreciated them, even though they were assholes. Just shit was always interesting whenever they were around.
They were, yes, it was.
And
But-
so
But yeah,
I think the main thing though is that it's obvious that Rian Johnson did not know what to do with Finn.
yeah.
Like my dad called him. He's the Jar Jar Binks of this new trilogy.
he kind of is.
I think that's a little harsh, but
Like because he's so
Maybe the 3PO.
He's so like inconsequential. Yeah, 3PO would be that of the original trilogy, but he's kind of this comedic character who is sometimes serious, and it's kind of a shame.
He literally starts the show out walking around naked in a leaking water suit.
Yeah.
And poses.
Which immediately made me think about Sword Art Online Abridged, like the last episode 11, because it has because it has him walk out and yank out a catheter.
Insert that Dragon Ball Z abridged bit. Like, wait, you didn't do anything to me while I was passed out, did you? No. Why? Like,
what if I'm not good enough?
God. Wait, am I not good enough for you?
Yeah.
What?
I'm gonna be honest with you. This is all sounding really gay.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah,
I mean,
but no.
it's just
At
like,
the end of Sword Art Online Abridged, at the end of the first season, he wakes up from his coma, starts walking out, and then in the original anime, he gets right down the hall. But in the abridged version, you hear him accidentally yank his catheter out of his dick. So I'm assuming that's what, I'm guessing that's what that water suit Finn was wearing is that it was like a portable catheter or something. Because I don't know. That's what I immediately thought was, I was like, is that his urine spraying all over the place? That's gross. Did he? Yeah. Is he okay?
It's
anyway.
like one of those back to tanks that they just throw a person. It's like, there you go, you're better now.
Yeah, maybe it was like pumping Bacta into him. I don't know. Anyway. That's just what I immediately thought of there in that scene.
So it's obvious that this entire subplot exists because Rian Johnson did not know what to do with Finn. So he gave him a.
But he knew he wanted to give him a new love interest for some reason.
I think that happened a little more organically than that. Which let's
Which in a way I think is another way in which this kind of ripped off the Empire back.
Let's talk about Kelly Marie Tran's character, Rose Tico. She's getting a lot of backlash, and guys, it's not deserved. This is not a move.
She's an okay character.
This is not a move to appeal to the Chinese audience, mostly because
is that what people?
Mostly because the Chinese, one, she's Vietnamese. Two, the Chinese audience does not care about ethnical representation. Their big movie this year starred Matt Damon.
Wait, which movie was that?
The Great Wall.
The
Wall, or whatever it was called. With the it's bonkers. It's bonkers. It's the kind of movie that only an Asian would come up with.
Yeah, that's what I say whenever somebody adapts a with a white cast. The Japanese don't care, guys, and or at least not about that.
Yeah,
it's like they don't. Yeah, it's like the Japanese don't.
They'd rather movies take place in China than have Chinese characters, like Transformers. Transformers 4, I think, is still the biggest movie in Chinese history for the Chinese market. And that movie had a couple Chinese characters in it, but it was mostly because the deal with that movie is that the Chinese government ended up being the heroes in that movie. If you guys remember, if you guys put yourself
in the same sentence together.
If you guys put yourself through that movie, that was the big hero moment, was the Chinese military coming in and fighting the giant robots. Because
I watched it halfway through once, and I didn't get it half the time. I was just like, what's going on? This is really stupid. What is happening? I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. What the hell?
So it was a Transformers movie.
Yeah, exactly. It was a Transformers movie.
Yeah, that was when I was I cut my losses after that movie. I was like, I'm not gonna watch another Transformers movie. But yeah, I thought her character
I just
was
had
fine.
nothing else to do.
Why couldn't she just be the hacker? Like, she's an engineer.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
She just
it's
slice
like
her way into.
Yeah, exactly. They could have just they could have just done what they could have just done the whole New Hope thing all over again. They have
like a lot of the movie take place on the
Star
Destroyer.
Ship. Yeah,
and
like if you do that, you can get more of Phasma. Like, that gives you more of a reason for Phasma to be around and doing stuff. Like, if she's security.
Yeah,
which again,
but you'd have to like have her like on her own because she knows what Finn looks like. So you'd have to like
that's true.
You'd have to address that. You'd have to do something regarding that.
Yeah.
But the main reason this plot does not work and why it seems a little pointless is because we gotta talk about Laura Dern's character. We gotta talk about Laura Dern's character now. Admiral Holdo.
Laura Dern is a good actress, but this character sucked.
She's the worst part of the movie. And no, it's not because she has purple hair, although that was a little weird. It's because
nobody cares. I remember I was watching The Half in the Bag and they're like, why the purple hair? Why?
Yeah, I need to watch that. I need to watch their Half in the Bag. They usually have good insight on Star Wars stuff. But it doesn't work because she doesn't work as a character because her entire subplot is built around keeping a secret from the audience, really. It was just keeping a secret from the audience for the sake of padding out this runtime. This already kind of bloated movie. Again, like, this is the longest Star Wars movie. It did not need to be 2.5 hours long. It could have been a solid 2-hour movie, just like every other Star Wars movie. You could easily cut a half hour out of it.
That's what people keep forgetting, is that less is more film and storytelling in general.
Yeah, like, there's a reason why the 3-act structure exists in movies, and it's because movies, as an art form, were meant to only be 90 minutes long.
Yeah.
Because
and there's a reason why, and there's a reason why most theater nowadays is just one-act plays.
Well, I mean, one-act plays are also just a lot easier to write and memorize and whatever and perform.
Yeah.
But no, the 3-act structure in like films came because film used to be expensive. Like, you used to have to actually pay for the film you were shooting on. And so like even a moderately budget movie could only afford a little over 90 minutes of film. And so movie story structure kind of adapted and was forged by that technological that technological restriction, and a lot of movies still to this day, like 2 hours, you get 90 minutes of like actual story stuff, and then the other half an hour is like kind of padding fun and action and or the jokes. If it's a comedy, it'll be filled with jokes. If it's a horror movie, it'll be like that slow crawling suspense will be that extra half hour. But yeah, that's how a lot of movies are made, and that's how Star Wars was made. It was made with that same kind of thing in mind. And this movie, it just went on it went on too long, and it's because of this plot, and it's because of Laura Dern's character keeping secrets for no reason. But it does lead to the coolest moment in this movie.
Probably one of the most impressive shots. Like this, I'm just sitting there like
It does raise the question, why couldn't they just do this with the very first ship that was about to go down? But bringing up that question is like bringing up, why didn't they just dive bomb the Death Star trench? Why didn't they just go right to the exhaust port and shoot a missile straight down it?
Oh god, we could bring.
And how did the exhaust port even work? But anyway.
Yeah.
Why did the exhaust port suddenly stop doing its job? But yeah, it was a really cool move that she has, and although again, it kind of required Hux to be a bit of an idiot about it. Like, he's just like, looks like she's turning to face. He's just like, whatever. Whatever. It doesn't matter. And then like he realized, she's looking around. Oh shit!
Fire the autocannon. Oh god, that's such a lame name for it though. Autocannon. That's so boring. Yeah. It really is. But so it honestly is. So basically, the big huge ship is cut. Well, not in half. It's cut into a third.
Yeah,
radical thirds here,
smashed right through,
and almost all the Star Destroyers receive some form of critical damage in some way, shape, or form, if not destroyed.
Yep.
This then facilitates Rose and Finn being able to escape.
Yeah.
Because everything's on fire and blowing up now.
Yeah.
How did they actually get off? Do they like?
They found a shuttle.
Oh yeah, they found a shuttle, and then they have.
And Rey used Snoke's personal ship. After
I thought she had the Falcon on standby.
How did Rey actually get out of there?
I thought
Rey got
in. Rey his shuttle.
Yeah, no, she stole Snoke's shuttle and then got back onto the Falcon.
Yeah, and then flew that to the Falcon.
Oh, so here's the so this is the one moment that I'm happy that I didn't. So there's two moments there's one moment that I was robbed of in this movie, which I really wanted. I wanted a dogfight between Poe and Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
He
blew that out of the water.
The other problem the other thing I'm kind of glad didn't happen though was I was sitting and I kind of got it just a little bit with the Millennium Falcon rolling in to save the day just a little bit. I was kind of waiting for like that moment where the I forget what song it is though, but it's very popular like a lot of Vietnam like movies where it's the it's like, and like
Flight of the Valkyries.
No, not Flight of the Valkyries. It's is it Flight of the Valkyries? It's not like
Flight of the Valkyries is the da 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 da.
It's and it's like that's like the initial like guitar riff. I feel bad because I forget what it is though, but it's in a lot of Vietnam movies where like the Hueys are like the reinforcement Hueys are just like flying in and like the door gunners are just sitting there and everything. Like I'm sitting there waiting for it's like, okay, it's like when are the reinforcements gonna come to save the day? Like that's what I was like. That was the moment I was waiting for, but I was kind of glad I was robbed of. Like I had a little bit of that where like the Millennium Falcon's flying around and doing the shoot bangs, and then they're like doing their own little like mini.
Kind of like in Attack of the Clones when the clones showed up and stuff like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
So, speaking of it's like a poetry. It rhymes and it repeats itself. It's like they have to destroy a miniature Death Star that's supposed to punch a big old hole in the wall, and Poe
they just
tries to
get away from that.
They just can't get away from that. Now I have a really big fucking Death Star. Now I have a really small miniature Death Star.
What's that scene in Godfather 3? I try to get out, but they keep pulling me back.
Yeah,
yeah. The Death Star keeps pulling us back.
And then I like how like I like the cinematography too on that planet where it's like it's all covered in salt, but then it's red underneath. Like the cinematography, that's really pretty. They did too.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. I have mixed. I've also heard some people talking about like Rose stopping Finn from. Sorry.
I feel like we've forgotten one of the most like this scene actually like helped make the movie for me was the lightsaber fight scene between the Royal Guard.
I
loved it a lot. I loved it a lot.
Red Guards.
That was so good. Like I remember sitting there watching that fight and whatever it was Kylo Ren kills like the last guard by just shooting the lightsaber through his face.
Yeah.
They did a lot of creative stuff with lightsabers in this fight.
I could hear the all wincing of like the crowd, and like my dad's sitting there and he's like, "Ooh, that looks like that hurt," and his media's camera blacks out for just a split second. But
it's flickering a little bit. It's catching up frame rate stuff.
That was a very well put together like fight scene. Like that one, like that no joke. If that scene wasn't in the movie, my opinion of this would be nowhere near as
it was probably my second favorite scene behind the Yoda stuff.
And it's like it was a good fight scene, and like I like how it introduces the fact that, like, oh, you know, there are weapons in the Star Wars universe that like can clash with lightsabers perfectly fine.
Yeah, hold up.
Like, like Viroblade.
I've
and they all have like different. They have like
long.
staffs and like whip swords and like dual wielding.
And I think they like.
And even their armor was resistant to lightsaber blows too. Also, because there was like he was actually there was
one
of
they
the
have to
guards that was
shove it into them.
Yeah, like that he was actually blocking it with the armor too. Also, so it was really good.
Yeah, that fight was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care that Snoke went out like a chump because that scene was great. And I will hear none of it. I will hear nothing to the contrary. So after that, everyone kind of scrambles onto the planet, which was the plan all along. Again, like, why didn't Laura Dern's character just tell someone that?
Yeah, tell Poe that. Yeah.
Yeah, could have saved us at least 30 minutes of screen time that could have been better allocated somewhere else.
Yeah.
I love that Rey and Kylo Ren. Going back to that scene, like I love that they're still in this kind of tug of war. Who's gonna turn who? We don't know. I kind of hope neither one of them turns. I kind of hope that they're kind of in this deadlock
the tug of war was symbolized between the lightsaber being split in half.
Yeah, the two of them.
Like that was the literal metaphor of their struggle.
Yeah, this isn't going to end easy. Yeah, this isn't ending anytime soon. This conflict between the two of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all this makes me hope is that Rey turns her bow staff or whatever into a lightsaber. That's all I want.
That was another.
Oh, I would love that if she gets like the double-sided
to the end of it.
Yeah.
No, she gets like a double-sided. Yeah, it goes full Darth Maul. I would love that. That would be so cool.
Yeah. I liked that.
Wasn't that a thing in the canon where like the double-sided lightsabers were for like the Sage or what were they called, sort of Jedi? Or, I'm trying to remember.
I think that's a Old Republic thing, but yeah. But yeah, I like that.
I think that was more like a video game thing. Like the guard enemy types would have the double-sided lightsaber.
Yeah, I like the assassins. Yeah, but I like that. And I actually like that scene where she starts by training with the staff and then switches to the lightsaber because I don't know. A part of me feels like that was maybe their way of saying
she was very well acclimated to combat before she ever touched the lightsaber. Which I love that. I love that they addressed that. I love that Snoke's like, you got beaten by a girl who had never held a lightsaber before.
Lightsaber, yeah.
You will never.
But I did like that how that was. But I also like that how it was kind of like. She then switches to the lightsaber, proves that she's decently proficient with that, although swings a little too hard at one point.
That scene
but I did.
Oh, you go first, Robert. I'm sorry.
But I do like that it kind of seems to be the implication that, like, bow staffs and lightsabers is not a huge leap, perhaps, but yeah. At least not for her. But yeah. Sorry, go ahead, High Powered.
So speaking of that, the end, like, whatever Kylo gets talked down on, whenever he gets out of the elevator and the two, like, officers are like, shit, our day went just from good to fucking bad in, like, 3 seconds.
Yeah. It's like, I don't want to be here right now. He's pissed. Yeah.
So here's the thing, though. The siege ends up playing out where it's kind of like the Battle of the Hoth, but in sending... And, we've got land speeders instead of just whatever these other ships are called. To go after the walkers and stuff.
Piece of garbage falling apart little sand skippers.
Poe's foot goes through, what the hell?
It's like, man, what did I sign up for? I want my black X-Wing back.
Like, I don't like these things. I don't like this situation. Oh, what the hell?
You got the freaking gorilla walkers closing in.
I actually like the new walkers. They're darn cool. I think they're. I'm perfectly fine with these new.
I straight wanted them to try doing what they did in Empire Strikes Back, but it's like these gorilla walkers are built to withstand that, so like they buckle, but then they just kind of like keep going. Like I wanted that to happen. Like, oh no, we can't just like that. That would be the big like. No, this isn't Empire Strikes Back.
No, that would have been a fine fuck you. Like they try to do like the wire trick to them, and then they just like step out of it. Like there we go.
Just like
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like how But yeah. And yeah, we have Rose like tackle Finn, which
I did
kind of
not
point
like.
this out.
I think Finn.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say he should have died. But if he's gonna die, that would have been the perfect moment. Like it would have closed out his
Yeah.
he's no longer like the entire like.
Yeah,
Force
it's like where
Awakens,
does his character go from here?
And even the beginning of this movie, he's like still trying to get away from the First Order. Like, why does everyone want to go back to Jakku? He's still in that mindset, and like this is him like being like, no, I'm not running away from a fight. I am doing this. I am putting a stop to this. I am going to sacrifice myself for all the friends
like
I've
that
made.
would have been a good time, but then she tackles him and says it's not about her. Yeah.
I like the
again though I still like that
but,
line though. But.
I mean, she nearly died because of that, so I swear like she better survive, because if she dies, I'm gonna be really really mad at this scene instead of just sort of kind of mad.
Yeah, but then
Luke Skywalker shows up out of nowhere.
And it's been talked about that, like, it was...
The thing that I kind of saw, the thing that tipped me off was the lightsaber. The lightsaber that not 10 minutes earlier we saw get split in half. Luke Scott. And he also never actually touches Kylo Ren, he just dodges and stuff. He tanks all the...
And he leaves no footsteps, and he looks younger.
No footsteps, like he looks...
I don't think he looks as Kylo autistically screeches everyone fire, and then the second in command is just like...
Hux is just like, stop it.
And Hux is just slowly like, nah, I think we're good. And then the gunner's like, yeah, you're right enough. And then he's sitting there looking at the engine. Fuck, dude, we just expended a lot of ammo. That shit ain't cheap, too, also.
Yeah. You don't like the budget, Larry. I do.
Did we get him? And Luke's still standing there like, no, we did not. I was straight waiting for him to like catch all the blaster bolts like Kylo Ren did in The Force Awakens and just throw them all back. Like, that would
just
so
unlimited blade works them back at the back then.
Yeah, but and I will say one other thing I was gonna say is that Hux is also kind of a joke character in this, and at the same time, like we talked about this last week, that the New Order is, kind of the wannabe Empire and stuff like that, and they're not like as powerful and in control as the Empire. And I feel like Hux does a great job of embodying that, because it's like, he's a serious guy, and he pretty much is generally one of the smarter people in the room, even though he's also, like, he's this very smug presence, but he's also kind of a doofus. Like, he's also sometimes a little too smug.
He was smart enough to consider putting a blaster round into Kylo Ren whenever he was down, but he thought just a little too long.
Yeah, I did think that was kind of funny. I was like, he starts reaching for it, he's just like, never mind. Just like, never mind. But yeah, I thought that was, I don't know. I like Hux.
Me too.
As a villain, and kind of also as like a foil to, I don't know. I kind of like him as like a foil to Kylo Ren, but
the one thing that I did like,
I can't help but feel that they're kind of projecting, topical political subjects into Hux specifically.
Yeah. Okay.
But so the one thing I liked between the Kylo Ren and the Luke fight, and I hate to use the word fight, was they specifically did this on purpose. Was they sit there and they show Kylo Ren like doing the foot squish, and then like you see like, oh, you could see the red underneath it, and then every time you saw like Luke move, like that didn't happen. So
yeah,
that was just a little thing there, and
I thought that was kind of clever though. That it's like the hints of what's really going on that Luke's like they did a good job of making where like the hints that Luke is not actually there, that it's an astral projection. The hints are all there, the evidence is all there, but like it's just one of those things that you just can't quite. And when you look back, you're like, oh wow, yeah, there was all this stuff.
So
but
here's
one of those things where like you just can't quite put your finger on. You're like, there's something wrong here.
So here's the best piece of evidence that Luke's actually not there, and it happens for about a few seconds. And it shows that Luke's X-Wing is underwater for just a few split seconds. I think it's Rey that spots it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, he could have Yoda'd his way and like lifted it up and then took off and then like right.
Yeah, I actually kind of feel like that was a bit of a Chekhov's gun type of thing. That we didn't get that scene of like, Luke finally coming into his own and accepting what he is and lifting the X-Wing out of the water. I felt like that was kind of a Chekhov's gun type of thing. But I was kind of bummed by that, but oh well.
Yeah,
and Chekhov's gun is the idea that if there's a Chekhov's gun is the idea that if there's a gun on screen, it should go off. Or in theater, it's if there's a gun on screen, it goes off. So if you didn't know.
Although that kind of runs counterintuitive to what Alfred Hitchcock did with Suspense, where like you can't have the bomb go off.
Yeah, I know. Even Chekhov broke that rule. So
yeah. Man, I feel like there's more to talk about with Luke. The fact that he did raise the lightsaber to try to kill Kylo Ren back then, and that's kind of like what cemented Kylo Ren's fate. He definitely redeems himself this movie, but I don't think I'm okay with everything that they do with. I'm not okay with everything they do with Luke in this movie. I'm okay with a lot of it. I'm okay with how it ends, but I'm not okay with this kind of out of character, like going against what Luke represents. But at the same time, that's kind of the point.
That this isn't the same Luke.
Don't meet your heroes. Kill the past, let the past die, kill it if you have to. The only way to become who you are. The Force Awakens was way too comfortable just following A New Hope's plotline. In this movie, like, killed off a lot of the stuff from the original trilogy, mostly thematic-wise.
Again, the idea that they try too hard to be subversive, maybe.
Yeah, I think this post-Disney Star Wars has finally found its footing. It finally kind of carved out its own identity. It just had to mess with a lot of people's minds in order to do that.
Yeah.
Which
speaking as far as the whole idea, sorry. But as far as the whole idea of Luke almost kill Kylo Ren, on the one hand, Luke did almost kill, Luke did try to kill Darth Vader when Leia was threatened. And so a part of me, almost envisions that Luke, I don't know. I guess what I see potentially happening in the scene is that Luke got a glimpse of the future. He saw Kylo Ren kill Han. He saw Leia get spaced. We saw all of this stuff that Kylo Ren was going to do, and immediately his first instinct was to stop that. And then he but again, only for that instant. And then he stopped, but at that point it was too late. And in a way, I think that's kind of
He did hesitate.
Yeah, and the important thing there is that he didn't, that he resisted is that he, like you said, it was only for an instant, which is all it takes for a lightsaber to come out, unfortunately.
And I love the reasoning. I love the reasoning. Because I am Luke Skywalker, because I am this legend. But I think it would have worked a lot better if it would have been this hubris, oh no, he would have been I'm Luke Skywalker, and I'm gonna turn you back to the light, Kylo or Ben.
Yeah, and I'm gonna fix you no matter what, and it's you can't.
And then he
tried too hard and stuff.
Yeah, and then he becomes the authority figure that Kylo Ren is rebelling against.
Yeah, and so and that is another thing that I kind of enjoy about the idea of, I don't know, that line from Kung Fu Panda, one often meets their destiny on the road they take to avoid it. And so, but I do agree that they probably should have found something different besides Luke trying to kill him, just made it about, him trying too hard to save him and driving him away. That's what, it happens. And so, yeah, I'm iffy on that one. I don't know. So, but I don't know. Another scene that I like and I forgot to mention was when Luke tells Rey to reach out and feel the Force, and she literally.
Yeah, I think that was the time that I actually chuckled.
Yeah, and he just started. Yeah, he's just you feel that? You feel that? Whoosh!
Bad frog.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
she's just oh, you made. It's just Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
One thing I wanted to talk about is kind of how the Force is visually portrayed in this movie, and I really like that they we got a little bit of it in Revenge of the Sith with the dreams. But until this, we never really saw what tapping into the Force looks like to the user until this movie, and it does a lot of cool stuff with it.
Yeah. And I like how Rey's answer when Luke asks, "What do you think the Force is like every casual Star Wars fan, even not even
and tell people to do things."
Yeah, exactly. It's every casual Star Wars fan's answer to that question. It's like you move rocks and control people. It's like no. But yeah.
Yeah, that's where
that exploration of the
Luke
Force.
kind of being like the Yoda in this movie comes in, because he tells they do a lot more exploration with the Force and what it can actually do in this movie than they have in previous movies, and I think that's going to be
the closest they've come before this was Episode 5.
Again, they did a bit of that with Revenge. Did a bit of this with Revenge of the Sith as well.
A little bit, maybe too. But yeah.
Like at the end, Karen's like, "Oh, lifting a bunch of fucking rocks. God fucking damn it."
Yeah, Rey's just like lifting a bunch of rocks, huh? Yeah, but it is that nice that emphasis on the idea that everything is connected by the.
In that anybody can be a Jedi. Your background doesn't matter to your ability to use the Force, because again, anyone can be a Jedi, and this is kind of in the final shot, it's articulated with the broom kid. I think that's what people have been colloquially calling him. The broom kid.
This scene made my insides hurt whenever I saw it, because I'm like, yep, this is gonna be like the main character for the next trilogy whenever that happens. This kid looks exactly like Kid Luke from the prequel trilogy.
Kid Anakin?
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hope not.
Sitting there, and here's the thing though, I brought that up to my friends and stuff, and they're like, wait, really? And it's like, yeah, no, that's what he did, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the kid pulls the broom to him with the Force, and
yeah.
But
and it also does have that. Can be a Jedi, anyone can be a Jedi. You got Kylo Ren, who's from this not even really that long legacy of Jedi. You got Anakin, Luke, and then him. And then Leia can use the Force too, but she's not she doesn't do much with it.
She's not a Jedi.
Oh, here's a fun little thing too. Also, that was
but then you got Rey on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, who's nobody from nowhere. Yeah.
So here's another fun little thing that happened in this movie. So whenever Poe is Poe, it's Finn opens up a drawer, and if you look in the drawer, it's an exact carbon copy of all the books that were burned in the tree.
Yeah,
because I guess
they are the books. Well, no, they.
Yeah, that was the intention that I know, Robert, you have kind of an issue with this, but
I take issue with the idea of burning knowledge, and so I feel like that's a giant spit in the face to history. I understand I understand the theme of letting the past go, but I also strongly believe that the past is something that should be learned from, and I don't agree with completely forgetting it, and so the past is something that is meant to be moved on from, but it's not something to be destroyed or even necessarily regretted. Really, it's something to be learned from and moved on from. So I was glad to realize that Rey had the books and they weren't actually burned, because I'm not okay with the idea of burning knowledge. So that's my spiel there.
Let's get some closing thoughts in here, because it's getting close to
I guess I had something else I was wanting to say about just the final the final scene with Luke. A part of me, it was kind of that cool, and it was a well done thing, projection, and then dying, they set that up early on. They told Kylo Ren had that line when he and Rey first saw each other and stuff like that. He was like, "Is this you? No, it can't be you. It would kill you." And so the fact that them setting that up as what ultimately kills Luke, I thought was in it like it made sense and it worked. And again, the evidence that he's just an astral projection there, but they're also not made overt enough for you to realize. But the fact that Luke, I don't know, a part of me kind of felt like, why didn't, if they were just going to kill him off anyways after the whole thing, why didn't they just have him show up on the planet and go the same way Obi-Wan did? That was kind of what I wondered about out there. And in a way, he kind of did. He died sacrificing himself so others could escape. But at the same time, I feel like him dying I feel like that's one way in which you could have just, copied right from the New Hope and nobody would have cared. That would have been a great way to kind of bookend Luke's story, kind of. He leaves.
I think it was done the way it was because I think Rian Johnson was way more interested in finding new things to do with the Force or ripping off things from the expanded universe that hasn't been in the movies yet in regards to the Force, than he was just doing things the way it had been done before, because he could have easily done it just like in A New Hope, but I think he wanted to be like, no, this is something that happened in the books that I liked, so I'm gonna have it be in the movie too. This movie is way more. This movie is way more interested in the expanded universe and way more interested in expanding the lore of Star Wars than any other Star Wars movie since Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and in that
maybe Revenge of the Sith with the whole Darth Plagueis thing, but
a little bit.
That was just one scene in Revenge of the Sith.
And in that sense, I would say something I talked about last week with Rogue One and The Force Awakens is kind of the idea that there was always something missing from them because they didn't take risks and they didn't we felt like they were too comfortable. They didn't take risks and they didn't really expand on much and stuff like that. This episode does not, I don't feel, has that problem. They took some decent risks and they worked to, expand the idea of what the Force can do. I don't know. So I thought that's one thing that I think this movie had going for it that I thought was really good. So,
and the thematic content is a little deeper than it's been in any other Star Wars movie since Return of the Jedi. Overall, this was just a really solid movie. It had some missteps, especially with the Finn plot.
Yeah. And again, it just felt like it went too long. I remember after they blew up the Snoke ship and stuff like that, and then they landed, and then I was all like, "Wait, is this still going?"
They're like, "Oh yeah."
This and again, if they'd cut out the trailer. Yeah, exactly. And that was where I was kind of like, I feel like you guys already had your climax and stuff like that. So that was my issue there. That's where I started to feel like, okay, let's wrap it up. But,
yeah.
But sorry, but yeah.
I'm gonna try looking into more of the outrage stuff for a later date, but I don't see the problems other than apparently the reason why its Rotten Tomato user score so low is because someone actually was trolling Disney and flooded the site with bots. This movie, it doesn't I think the average critic score is okay. It's got an average score 8 out of 10. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. It does not deserve being in the 90 percentiles of Rotten Tomatoes, but I mean, it deserves to be higher than Rogue One, and Rogue One's still in the 80s. I don't get. That movie was
it's better than Rogue One.
I'd say in some ways
might be better than The Force Awakens at certain points.
In some regards. Here's the thing, though. I don't think it gripped me like The Force Awakens did. The Force Awakens, I was in it. I was enthralled. I was loving it every minute it was on screen. It wasn't until I thought about that I was like, this is a little weak. I know it's my dad's least favorite Star Wars movie. My dad does not like The Force Awakens.
Which one? Oh, okay.
And I think this kind of suffers from, like, it's on that opposite extreme of it challenges kind of your perception of the original trilogy in a way that the prequels were never allowed to do, because the prequels were taking place beforehand, so it was never able to get that kind of meta narrative that these new movies do.
Yeah.
I think it was way better than Rogue One, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, actually. I feel like this gripped me more than The Force Awakens did. I talked about how, like, I was at the edge of my seat, during that point where everything is just crashing crashing down around people and stuff like that until the ship light speeds through everything. Whereas, with The Force Awakens, the run on the Starkiller base just didn't have the same effect, didn't have the same amount of suspense that I would have liked. So, yeah. I don't know. But, yeah. So that's my thoughts there, comparing those two. But, yeah.
The high-powered final thoughts?
For me, hold up a second. I'm gonna ruin this podcast. Let me just take a fat vape here real quick. The movie was fine. I had fun. It didn't take up any time. And hey, you either gotta vape hard or not vape at all. So I mean, But I mean, the movie didn't offend me in any way.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. It was fine for me. Like, I wasn't wasting my time. I didn't feel like the money spent was worth it. I was more upset that, like, whenever I went to go fill up my soda, that, like, I'm just like, my feet are sticking to the ground. And I'm like, does anyone own a mop here, please? Please? I know, like, it's great. I'm curious what they're gonna do with the next one, because, like, it honestly seems
going back
let's
to
talk about
J.J.
that, like,
Abrams,
I
which
have
is
no
weird.
idea where you go from here, other than, like, okay, Rey and Kylo Ren are going to be doing their, like, tug-of-war light side, dark side thing, but
Yeah.
other than that, where
And
do
you have
go from
and you have
here?
a severely weakened rebellion, and also, like, or resistance. I mean, same difference, split the difference. But you have a severely weakened resistance with no real allies left, because they have that whole thing where, and again, I feel like that was them kind of doing a subversion type of thing. But at the same time, it's all like, they really got their work cut out for them building a rebellion from just who's on board the Millennium Falcon now. So, yeah. That seems strange to me. Also, how many... Anyway, yeah.
Millennium Falcon is a pretty large ship. It could, but then there's a lot of people dying in this movie.
Yeah.
Mostly nameless characters, but by the end of that battle, we are down to like 30 rebels at most.
Oh, are they planning on shipping Poe and Rey?
Poe and Rey? Have they
Because
even met yet?
Because
Have Poe and Rey even met?
Yeah, they meet, and
Millennium Falcon.
He says
they're giving the sex eyes to
the
Rey.
hint
Oscar
for me
Isaacs
that they
gives
might.
Leia the sex eyes too, so.
I mean,
He's
Well,
just
the
more
hint for me
confident,
with
dude.
that was when Finn has that line of, or Poe has that line of, "Hi, I'm Poe," and she's all like, "Hi, I'm Rey," and he says, "I know," and I was like that immediately made me think Empire Strikes Back. I love you. I know. That's like what that immediately made me think about it. I was like,
look at me,
okay.
big dick. I'm an ace pilot. And he just flops it out on the table. It's like, check this out, huh? Oh, I didn't even call the doctors after 4 hours. That's so much of a
You don't need to see me with my shirt off. I'm not a crazy guy. I'm already on the lights.
Okay, so here's the
let
only
the,
So
let the
maybe.
Oscar X-ray shift
Maybe.
begin.
Maybe.
I'm glad
All right.
Star Wars has never been as rabid as like Ruby when it comes to stuff like that.
Oh God.
Hopefully not.
So no Ruby podcast this week.
Yeah. Wrapping up.
Because it's Christmas.
Yeah, it's Christmas. So this is the last podcast of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I was
just
gonna ask what about the 28th, but
just to do a fun food for thought podcast. I mean, well, just have a fun little food for thought, just to tide everyone over. So, someone it was in the Ruby Rewind. They said something big's gonna happen. We're all curious what it is. I would personally like if Ty shows up or an Atlas intervention. Now, I'm gonna end it there because I'm tired and I want.
And this isn't the Ruby podcast.
And this isn't the Ruby podcast.
We have a time and place for that, and it's uploaded on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. every week. Except for this week because it's Christmas and there's no episode.
All right.
And I also owe some people an apology because I said that I would have the one of my videos on my YouTube channel up by yesterday, and unfortunately I have been sick, kind of still am, and also really busy with some stuff. I am sorry about that, and I'm about to become busy again, going to see his family, so I would have that out by the end of the year. I am very sorry about that, though.
Right. I'm ready to call it a night, so...
Yeah, that's it for our Star Wars series. That's it for our podcast this year.
This was fun. I enjoyed this.
We'll see you 2 years from now.
Yeah. We'll see you a year, like 2 weeks from now.
Oh yeah, for the Han Solo movie.
Yeah. And we'll probably do some... I kind of want to do something with Marvel. I don't know how we're gonna chunk that out because there's like 20 of them. And we would have had to start it like 3 months ago if we wanted to catch the release of Infinity War. But
we've been talking about doing a bunch of. We've been talking about a bunch of stuff like
the Beyond podcast,
Naruto, My Hero Academia.
There are limitless possibilities on the Beyond podcast. Unlimited power, you would almost say. Yep, so that's it. Calling it a night. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yep,
happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah.
Kwanzaa.
Just have a good one.
Great Buddha Day. Anything else?
Have a happy last 11 days of the year.
Yeah. Whatever you celebrate.